Why do you involve me? Jesus replied, my time has not yet come. And again, you have to understand this understanding of time and what he's saying here. And what it basically is saying is, if I do what you want me to do, which is the only way I can do it, because we don't have any wine and there aren't any wine places to buy wine around here, I've got to manufacture some. And if I do that, people are going to know who I am, and it's not my time for them to know who I am. And, Mom, why are you doing this to me? But his mother knows perfectly well that he'll do something. See, there's no vacillation in her understanding of what he'll do. So she turns to the servants and says, do whatever he tells you to do. Now, folks, if you don't have that underlined, you don't understand who you are. You understand that you can be a son or daughter just by bowing your head and praying and repenting of your sins. But you become a servant by walking with Jesus over a lifetime. And Jesus' mom says, servants, do whatever he tells you. And that's good counsel. It was good counsel to them at that time, and it's good counsel to us at this time. Do whatever he tells you. Nearby stood 6 stone water jars, and the kind used by the Jews for ceremonial washing, and each holding about 20 to 30 gallons. And Jesus said to the servants, fill the jars with water. And so they filled them to the brim. Now, there's nothing, charis magic about that. That he just filled some jars with water. They had to go and get it from the well and bring it back and fill it up. It probably took a little time, a little work. And then Jesus says, now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet. Now understand that the servants were the only ones at this point in time that had touched anything. Those at the wedding guests hadn't done anything. The bride and groom hadn't done anything. The master of the banquet hadn't done anything. Jesus himself hadn't touched it. Only the servants touched it. You get it? The servants get to do this stuff. It was the servants that where the food multiplied in their hands. And it's the servants that the water was changed to wine. It was in effect in their hands, in their doing. Now notice the text catches this. It says, now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet. They did so, and the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned to wine, and he didn't realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water, what? 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 They knew. The servants get in on the inside track. The servants understands what's going on because the servants are involved in the process. In doing these menial little things, these great things come out of it. Do you understand that we tell these stories, about these great things that happen, and people think you move from one great thing to another great thing to another great thing, like leaping, goats leaping over mountains, something. You're doing a whole lot of menial things simply out of obedience. And in the process of that, every now and then, the Lord turns up the power. And whammo! Something happens totally unexpected. You just didn't know it was going to happen. And so they take this stuff to the banquet master, and the master of the banquet tasted the water and that had turned to wine, and he did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Now I tell you something that I covet in my heart for every one of you. Unless you've had the experience of doing what some of our people have done this week, ministering, some of these folks have hurried from their jobs and it didn't go well, and one guy had a lot of car problems this week. I heard about that. Another guy, his boss was giving him fits, and they hurry down here and they stay up until 10:30 or 11 at night, and they've been praying for people, and some of them, I don't know, I haven't asked for their batting average this week. Most of them are sitting over here, but some of them may have prayed for 20 people this week and not seen much, and the 21st one, whammo. And it's like peanuts. You can't quit eating it. Once you've tasted the power of God, once you've seen what God can do. I mean, deliverance is a nasty business, but it's one of the most beautiful and precious things in the world when you see it in the aftermath. And healing, you pray for so many people that don't get healed, and you get to the point where you do have mixed faith and doubt. But folks, unless you'll take that role of servanthood, you see, unless you have the inward conviction that the only thing you can do is what this fellow in Luke 17 said, we are unworthy servants, and we've only done our duty. And our duty is to get up and walk over and do it. Time and time again. And as you do it, that's when it happens. And I wished I could promise you that it would happen every time, but all I know is if you don't do it at all, it'll never happen. You've got to take on the role of humble service. That's where it's at. That's the bottom line. Do you understand that the rest of the wedding party didn't have a clue? The master of ceremonies didn't have a clue. But those servants knew. Those servants knew what Jesus had done. Those apostles didn't roll running up and down that hill saying, oh, look what God's done. They just did it. And they knew what Jesus had done. Are you hearing me? People are always asking me this, why don't you keep more records on this stuff and publish these things and publish the healings and deliverance and all that? Frankly, I couldn't be less interested. All I care about is that the servants know what's going on. You understand? I'm not interested in promoting our ministry. We don't have a ministry. The only ministry any of us have is whatever Jesus gives us. It's his ministry. Servants get to do servant stuff. Remember that. You might want to write that down.